So Tna Impact was live on the road from Chicago, Illinois. Great crowd. So we see a graphic on the screen that indicates that we're going to see a World Tag Team Championship match. Robert Roode and Austin Aries defending against Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez. So Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez come out. And as they were walking to the ring, I was thinking, and I wasn't really even seriously thinking this, but I thought, surely they're not going to start off the show with a World Tag Team Championship match. I mean, naturally, the show is going to start off with aces and eights, considering what happened at Lockdown. So Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez are in the ring, and they get attacked by aces and eights. Of course you're going to start to show off with them. So aces and eights attacks Chavo Guerrero Hernandez, throw them out of the ring. And then Devon gets on the mic and formally introduces Bully Ray as the president of Aces and Eights, as well as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And Bully Ray comes out. He hugs Taz, and then he enters the ring, and they all throw their signs up. Now, before and during Bully Ray's time on the mic, he handed the World Heavyweight Championship belt to Garrett Bischoff. So I guess Garrett Bischoff's job will be to keep that belt nice and shiny. That's going to be his job, keeping the belt clean. And then you had Devon with the TV title belt wrapped around his neck, doing everything with it except defend it. So then Bully Ray basically repeats the same things he's already said. He fooled Hogan, fooled Sting, screwed Hogan's daughter. And during his time on the mic, he said something very, very interesting. He said that, basically at Lockdown, Aces and Eights accomplished more in one night than the NWO hadn't accomplished forever. I thought that was a pretty cool comment. So Bully Ray goes on to belittle Hogan and calls him out, and even dares Hogan to fire them. Now let me talk about the visual of Bully Ray being in the ring with Aces and Eights. Take a professional sports team that you don't care about, you think they suck, you don't watch their games, and then your favorite player goes to play for that team. Then all of a sudden, the games featuring that team that you would never watch, even if you were paid to, are suddenly the games that you can watch, that you can tolerate watching because your favorite player is on that team. I had thought that maybe Bully Ray didn't need Aces and Eights. I knew he would turn heel and become champion. I thought he would become champion later. But I think I thought he could have been a heel champion without Aces and Eights. And that's why I used that example about the professional sports team that that you wouldn't give a shit about, until your favorite player is on it. Having Bully Ray there with Aces and Eights, I knew that TNA had made the right choice, because he just brings credibility to the group now. He makes them look stronger. I mean, sure, you're not going to like the guys any more than you did before Bully Ray joined, but that really is irrelevant. Just Bully Ray's presence there just makes them look like the heel faction that they should have been for the last several months. So for that reason, it definitely was the obvious choice that TNA could have made. So then we see Sting backstage reacting to what he had just seen with Bully Ray and Aces and Eights, and I don't know, I just thought his dialogue just came off contrived, and you know, just really didn't make sense what he was saying. And I thought that with less he could have said more. For example, you know, Sting could have just stared at the screen and then just picked it up and slam it down on the floor. You know, I thought that would have been much more powerful and could have basically said the same thing, but I don't know, it just came off contrived, and I didn't really care for it. So then we have a women's tag team match. We have Gail Kim and Tara against Velvet Sky and Mickie James. Now, they had announced this match before the commercial break, and I was thinking, surely they're not going to have Tara and Terrell as the quote-unquote ref for this match. But when they came back from the commercial break and Gail Kim came out and walked toward the ring, there was Tara and Terrell. Now, we also find out that Tara and Terrell is on probation. Okay. But I thought, why even have this tag team match? Why not just have Gail Kim come in the ring, Tara and Terrell is there, and just have those two go at it and just start brawling? The crowd would have gotten into it. It still would have been creatively a progression in their escalation. Still would have made sense. And it would have further built up, you know, the inevitable program that they're going to have with each other. But no, okay. So they're still going to have a tag team match. Now, when Tara came out, I was really hoping that she would come out alone without Mr. Duh, but she came out with Mr. Duh. And then Mickie James comes out, Velvet Sky comes out, and then the match begins. Now here was the highlight of the match. Gail Kim is lying down on the mat. Velvet has her by the ankle, and she drags Gail Kim over to the corner, you know, to make a tag. The problem is, Velvet Sky drags Gail Kim over to the corner to make a tag to Tara. So Velvet Sky quickly turns around and drags Gail Kim all the way back across the ring to tag Mickie James. And even Mickie James was laughing at what had just happened. Oh, Velvet. But it really wasn't that much of a fuck up that it affected the match. Now, if Velvet had actually reached out to tag Tara, then I would be saying something else. But it didn't affect the match. It was a good match. You had Tara doing the tarantula, which was really nice to see. But of course, this match was just basically directed toward continuing the escalation between Gail Kim and Terrence Rail. They got into it before the match, and they got into it during the match. And Gail Kim takes Terrence Rail by the face and shoves her down to the mat. And Terrence Rail gets up and slaps Gail Kim. And then Mickie James comes off the top rope with the Lou Thesz press. And then Tara grabs her. And then we see our, kind of a double finisher, if you will. Tara gives Mickie James the Widow's Peak. But before she can make the pinfall, Velvet grabs her and does her in your face. Is that what it's called? And Velvet Sky gets the pin. So you went into the match over Velvet Sky and Mickie James. Now, I will say this about Velvet Sky. I can see that she is trying to improve in the ring. But calm down, Velvet Marks. Her ring competency is not at that high level yet. But I will give her some credit for trying to be better in the ring. And I think that that's something that was obvious. It seemed to be obvious to her that she needed to do it. I will give her credit for trying. That I will give her. But what it also does is that with the Gail Kim Terrence Rail program about to have more focus placed on it, what happens to Velvet Sky? Is she going to be overshadowed by this? I mean, despite what most of us think about her as far as her ring skills, she still is the women's champion, and practically there's no one for her to face. I touched on a possible Mickie James heel turn, but that's going to take time. Who is she going to go up against now? So I guess that's something that we'll have to see. So yeah, the Aces and Eights backstage, they're sitting around drinking beer, and Bully Ray touches on the talk about Hogan possibly firing them, and then he calls Hogan's daughter, leaves a voicemail for her, and all the guys ridicule her over the phone. It was alright segment. I mean, I didn't see the point of it, but I get it. So then we had Rob Terry against Robbie E. Now, this was the more appropriate place to have this match if you were going to have this match. This is the match that never should have taken place at Lockdown. And having it on Impact made it feel more appropriate. But it didn't mean it was going to be a good match, because it wasn't. Another terrible match with these two. But if you were going to have the match, better it be on the Impact than on Lockdown, because it was a waste of time at Lockdown. Now, let me say this. I consider myself to be healthy, good condition. And I even will go to say that I have pretty good hearing. Now, while I was watching this match, I know I must have had some problems with my hearing, because I could have swore that I heard the crowd chanting, "Feed me more?" Rob Terry hasn't had the opportunity to make himself a serious contender in TNA. I mean, forget about when he was global champion. That was irrelevant. This is now his best chance to accomplish that. And he has the potential to be that. Don't compare Rob Terry to an overhyped, wishes that he could be but will never be, who talks a lot of shit and has backed up none of it. Don't compare Rob Terry to that guy. Now, he beats Robbie E, of course, and then he, I guess it was dancing, I guess, and then he adds that by doing some posing and even some one-arm push-ups. I can't believe TNA is going to push him like this. I've already talked about how I would have pushed Rob Terry. I would have sent him back to OVW, shave his head bald, give him a big but well-kept beard, have him tone down on the alleged quote-unquote enhancement, give him a manager, and then have him work in OVW for 3 months with his redefined character, and then you bring his ass back to TNA. And you tell me what's going to go over better. And you can even keep his name. You can call him Robert Terry. But what's going to go over better? My idea, or Rob Terry as a comedic face dancing and posing after matches? I guarantee you, my idea will get Rob Terry over more so than that guy. So Sting meets up with Hogan backstage, and Hogan blames Sting for, having him trust Bully Ray, basically choose Sting out, and doesn't want to have anything to do with him, and tells him to leave. So, okay. Then we see a video package basically reviewing what has happened with AJ Styles. Because, AJ Styles is supposed to appear on the show. I still thought it should have been a surprise, but okay. So then we know a comedy skit is about to happen, because Sting is approached by Robert Roode and Austin Aries. And Roode and Aries start ridiculing Sting about the situation with Bully Ray, and Aries even joked about how he and Rude wanted to defend the titles against Sting and Hogan. Now, please tell me that was a joke. So then Sting says he's tired of talking, he just wants to fight. And then Aries says, okay, well, you can fight one of us. And then you see Robert Roode just slowly back away out of camera shot. And Aries says, okay, one of us will take you on, it'll be Roode. He turns around, Rude's not there. And then Sting says, I'm going to fight you. So you're going to have Austin Aries against Sting later in the night. You know, just a, you know how those of you who have listened to my commentaries, you know how I feel about Rude and Aries, this comedy heel team. I mean, we've already got a heel team that does that very well. Don't need another team doing it. I just wish they would get pushed much more serious in this. There's nothing wrong with being a traditional heel, but I'm not going to get into all that again. I mean, you've heard my commentaries if you listen to them regularly, and it would just be nice to see that happen. So Christy Hemme gives this grand introduction for AJ Styles. You know, music plays and he doesn't come out, but instead you have Bad Influence come out, Christopher Daniels and Kazarian, and they come out dressed like Hawk and Animal, of course. Why not, being in Chicago? Now they were dressed more like the WWF Legion of Doom, more rather than the NWA Road Warriors. And basically they just came out and basically did some pseudo mockery, you know, of Hawk and Animal. Now this is going to sound silly, but I wish that Hawk and Animal could have traveled through time from 1986 to last night and showed up there to confront Daniels and Kazarian. I know it sounds silly, but that's something that I thought. Rest in peace, Hawk. So then James Storm comes out and confronts them, and then we end up having an impromptu match. James Storm against Christopher Daniels. It was an alright match. It wasn't very long, but Storm gets the win, and then Daniels and Kazarian start attacking Storm, and then AJ Styles comes out, hits the ring, he hits Kaz, and then Daniels and Kazarian back off. And then AJ Styles is staring at him, and James Storm gets back to his feet, stands next to AJ Styles, and then Styles gives him this sick clothesline. Now that's how you do a clothesline. And the cool part was about this was, okay, the hood, AJ had his hood off, and then when he clotheslined Storm, his hood just came back over his head. I thought that was just kind of cool. I know he didn't intend that to happen, but it just still looked cool to me. And then he slowly took it back off as he stared at Storm. And I had said this in a previous commentary when they were in the UK, that AJ Styles needed to come back to give James Storm a significant program. Storm had been floundering, being put in random crap matches, and that AJ Styles had to come back to give Storm a significant program again. And now this is going to happen. This is great. So then you had Aces and eights attacked Kurt Angle. You know, Kurt Angle was walking, you know, backstage, and Wes Briscoe appeared from behind, and Kurt Angle turned around, went to confront him, and then he gets attacked by Aces and Eights. It was an okay attack. I mean, really wasn't a brutal attack, but, you know, okay. And then Joseph Park comes out, and when he comes out, I tune out. So I don't care what this guy has to say. He's lame. I don't give a shit. I put the damn TV on mute, but kept my eye on the screen just in case anything happened. And then I see Matt Morgan heading into the ring, so turn the volume back up. And Morgan basically says, you know, Joseph Park is a joke, yes, and that he's one of many mistakes that he's going to correct. One of many mistakes made by Hogan. And basically what happens is he gives Joseph Park the carbon footprint, even though there was some miscommunication there, but nevertheless he delivers it to Park, and then basically says to him something like, "I'll see you next week," or, you know, something to that effect. So looks like they're gonna have a match next week. So then once again we see Aces and Eights back at the table, and Bully Ray's still talking about, you know, the possibility of Hogan firing them, and, you know, why don't we just destroy the show so they, you know, they get up and leave. Now let me talk about this supposed firing that may happen. I don't even understand why this is part of the storyline. Because of course we all saw Hogan suspend Bully Ray, even though Bully Ray continued to appear on Impact and even appeared at Genesis and was even in the UK until Hogan reinstated him. So I guess if Hogan fires Aces and Eights, all that's going to mean is Aces and Eights is still going to show up on every Impact. They're still going to attack people. They're still going to badmouth Hogan, Sting, Hogan's daughter, and the rest of the TNA roster, even though they would be still considered fired. So I don't even understand why this firing angle is involved in the storyline. What, you're gonna just take them off? No. Now this is something that I really didn't get, considering who this involves, and the fact that they hyped this throughout the show to make it a bigger deal than it really should have been. Just you just don't get it. They kept talking about, you know, the reaction of Hogan's daughter, you know, to Bully Ray. I mean, this is what you're hyping? And then all it was just a video recap of what happened at Lockdown, and we see more of Hogan's daughter's incredibly horrid acting. Why magnify that? A waste of time. So then we had Austin Aries versus Sting. And of course, Aries was accompanied by Rude. And it was a good match. During the match, Rude got involved and eventually would be sent away. And towards the end of the match, Aries attempts the Brain Buster, but Sting counters and gives him the Death Drop. Then follows that up with the Stinger Splash, and then he puts the Scorpion Deathlock on Aries. And then Aces and Eights hits the ring, and he attacks Sting. And then Bully Ray gets on the mic again and tells Hogan to do something. Go to a commercial break, and then they come back. Hogan comes out on crutches and basically says that the locker room is going to be banded together to take on Aces and Eights. And then one by one, members from the TNA roster come out, and a brawl starts in the ring. And then Aces and Eights, they beat down the TNA roster, and Bully Ray says, Hogan, what's he gonna do now? Then Hogan makes a move forward on his crutches and then stops, and then Bully Ray and Devon and D'Lo Brown are on that little platform as if they're going to approach Hogan, and that's where the show ends. I thought the brawl was just a little too long. I timed it around 3 minutes. And maybe it just went on a little too long, but it wasn't that bad overall. But the one thing was that when the TNA roster came out one by one, okay, first they played his music, and then he was the first one to come out. Of course, I'm talking about Jeff Hardy. Now, we hadn't seen Hardy for the entire show. And I thought that TNA would have gotten his comments. Now, backstage comments, he didn't need to be out in the ring because his promos are boring. But just simple comments backstage about losing the title to Bully Ray, reaction to Bully Ray being with Aces and Eights. Now, one point I want to make, after the live show, TNA did a taping for next week's Impact. So, some of you have probably already looked at the spoilers. Now, considering what happens next week, I think it would have been probably the best thing to have spoken to Hardy, considering what happens next week. So, another piece has been laid down, I guess. In some ways, it kind of looked like a standoff between Bully Ray and Hogan. And the chatter online has increased about the possible... can't say it. But you all know what I'm referring to. Now, I had previously talked about the fact that only the Hogan marks want to see this happen. The rest of us sane individuals know that this would not be good for the company if that happened. And most people, from what I've been reading, suggest that it be AJ Styles. And I think that's a great choice, considering the storyline that he's in now. And, it would be a great turnaround. And him to come off as the hero for the company would be a perfect story. Is Hogan going to allow that to happen, or is Hogan simply going to be Hogan and say, no, I'm going to do it? I'm Tasmar 2002, and that was my TNA Impact Analysis for March 14th, 2013. Please leave your comments below. Click like or dislike, and if you subscribe, I would really appreciate it. If you have any questions about TNA or wrestling in general, you can get at me on Twitter, TazMark2002, and if your comments exceed the 140, send me an email, tasmark2002@gmail.com. It was a good show, and the great crowd made it a good show. So we'll basically see what happens next week. The continued progression of this inevitable, possible situation between Hogan and Bully Ray. Okay. But let me just say this. Hogan did an interview this past Sunday, 1 hour before lockdown. He answered a question about his overall health, specifically his knees. He ended his answer by saying the following: I should be getting a title shot pretty soon. Oldest heavyweight champion of the world. Even before Bully Ray won the title, he said this 1 hour before lockdown even started. Dixie, are you going to allow yourself to be snake oiled again, or are you finally going to realize that this man is not going to help this company progress to the point that it needs to be at? Don't let this happen. I'm Tasmar 2002. Gone.